The Intercontinental Championship is going to be defended at WrestleMania between Gunther, the Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, against Sami Zayn. But is this the right decision? On Monday Night Raw, we had the Gauntlet Match, and I'm a big fan of Gauntlet Matches, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you something. You could run a gauntlet every single week for anything you want to do, and I'm going to be a happy man. This was solid. I really liked Ricochet's performance. I thought he really stood out in this thing. Everybody else, it didn't really feel like they were going to have a real shot at the IC title and going into WrestleMania. Now, the original plans, I think, based on the reports, was that it was going to be Brock versus Gunther, and then presumably Gunther would still win that match against Brock, because why would Brock need to be IC champion? So we ain't getting that, that's for damn sure. But the real build on TV every week has been the stories of Sami Zayn and also Chad Gable, and trying to build these two up, of trying to be the champion and trying to get to that next level. And I think more so Chad Gable, his story has really been about the struggle, and then he had a good series of matches and a little mini story on TV against Gunther and lost, and now he's fighting because Gunther made his kid cry because Chad lost, not because Gunther did anything. But anyways, both men had really good reasons why they wanted to be Intercontinental Champion and to really give it their all in the Gauntlet Match. So they were going to be the standouts. Now, did the Gauntlet Match totally work the way we wanted it to? And was the outcome kind of a mistake, having Sami Zayn win the thing and go to WrestleMania against Gunther? Comment below and let me know your thoughts. I may have tweaked the Gauntlet Match slightly so that you either have Sami run the whole thing beginning to end, or you have Chad go beginning to end and come up short, because I think that would have told a better story. When we had Kofi Mania, I feel that's what worked about Kofi Mania. The struggle and the barriers that Kofi received leading to his match at WrestleMania against Daniel Bryan. And you even had Vince McMahon involved in the whole thing. And you had the New Day involved, and they had to keep overcoming these challenges constantly to eventually crawl and get to WrestleMania. And Kofi was the standout in the gauntlet and won the thing, and it was super cool to see. I think for this 30-odd minute gauntlet match to have really been successful, I do think you needed one of the two men to run through the whole thing and get to the very end, and probably Chad Gable running the whole thing to the end and coming up short and getting Sami about that halfway point and then going from there. I don't know, you could have done it a different way in my opinion, because I think that if they had Chad run the gauntlet beginning to end, you really would have built up way more sympathy and seen him go as a wrestling machine. Because to me, Chad Gable is fun to watch. He's a modern day Kurt Angle, because he wrestles like him, he's got the humor, he's got everything you kind of need, all the ingredients. But my problem with Chad Gable has been, and I think what's holding him back, is everything with Alpha Academy. Doing all the comedy stuff, and it's been great, and it's been entertaining, and I really think it's funny, and Tozawa is great in there. They got a great thing going. But then you want to pivot Chad Gable and make him more serious and wearing suits and getting real focused on stuff. I like that, and that's refreshing to see. But I never felt during the build for the last couple of weeks or even months with Sami particularly, that they were really building him in the need to get the IC title. I felt like it was going to be great, and it's going to be a great match. It could be match of the night or match of the weekend at WrestleMania between Gunther and Sami. It's not the match itself, and Sami's such a good babyface. It's just the question mark of should it really have been Chad, and did WWE do enough to build out both faces with Gunther? Because every single week we have seen Gunther going through Sami Zayn, he's gone through Chad Gable, he's gone through Jey Uso. One after another, he's had all of these mini stories along the way, Gunther has. And then I felt like they dropped all of Chad Gable's story and just kind of moved on from it. Jey Uso got in the mix, and they just carried on. And I felt like you really needed to keep telling that story to get people wanting to see that Chad Gable match. Now, the thing though is it a mistake? Because once we got to the Gauntlet match on Raw, and you had Sami win, a lot of people are looking at it with the way that the roll-up happened or the finish happened, and Chad's neck is on the mat, but his shoulders maybe don't look quite on the mat. So a lot of people are questioning, hey, is that a clean finish? Could they have another match? Do you make it a triple threat? This is where it gets interesting. What do you do with Chad Gable at WrestleMania? Chad is he is over, but is he going to be perpetually stuck in the comedy gimmick and doing that with the tag division? And I also worry that Alpha Academy, since Chad Gable didn't win the gauntlet, that they are going to put Alpha Academy in the tag team ladder match at WrestleMania. They'll qualify and they'll get into that. And not that that's a bad spot at all. That's wonderful. They'll get on the card, but they won't. I don't think they would win. They wouldn't win the tag titles. And so I'm kind of like, that's a consolation thing. If I'm Chad Gable, and to make a really cool, compelling story for this to work, and for fans to feel like this is what they really want, and again, this is no shade to Sami Zayn. People are going to love having Sami in there going for the title. He might even beat Gunther. But I think even a better match, it's kind of like what they did at last year's Mania of Sheamus and Drew and Gunther having like match of the night. You could do that almost again and do it with Chad and Sami and Gunther. It depends if there's a lot of outcry and uproar for fans wanting to get Chad Gable into that match, to get him into a triple threat, and then maybe be the one to actually beat Gunther. But you could do a couple of different things which would be kind of clever and fun, is that if you did turn it into a triple threat, if Chad Gable basically says to Alpha Academy, sorry guys, I love you, but I gotta do this on my own. I gotta go and pursue this stuff. Tozawa, Otis, you guys handle Alpha Academy. I'm still there with you, but I gotta go and do this for myself and for my family, and have him try to get into the match and make it a triple threat. If he does, Chad could be the one to pin Sami. Now, would the crowd pop very much at WrestleMania for that? Maybe not. And I say pin Sami because if you have him pin Gunther, that's the ultimate prize, is to someone to pin Gunther. But an interesting story and wrinkle is that if Gunther isn't the one eating the pin, if Gunther doesn't eat the pin, loses the belt, Gunther has claims for a rematch, but also at like WrestleMania Backlash, or just Backlash now, and then beyond that, Gunther can just go move to the World Heavyweight title. And he can always sit there and be like, I was the longest Intercontinental Champion and I never lost. And that's kind of a cool way to do it too with Gunther, so it doesn't feel like he was actually defeated. There is the big thing of like, who can defeat Gunther? That's the bigger thing. To me, that's bigger than just the IC title win. Sami getting that moment at WrestleMania, I think would be super special, but does Sami need the IC title? To me, no. He main evented last year's WrestleMania in the tag team match. Sami is as over as he's ever going to be. And I always felt like with the IC title and whoever dethrones Gunther needs to be somebody that is kind of on the up and the rallying behind. And neither Sami or Chad, I really feel, are getting developed enough in the story at this point. And they should have been, in my opinion, building Chad for the last 3 to 6 months or a year of this thing of him kind of branching away from Alpha Academy and realizing he needs to get serious and go on his own and still have their support. Maybe even have a little bit of deception or breakdown where he's, Otis is costing him a match or two and him getting frustrated. There's a lot of different layers they could have done to this, and I feel like they're not going to do it, and they're going to go off with a tag team match and go in that direction between all of the tag teams that will qualify. Maybe they'll pick up the tag titles, I don't know. It's most likely that it's going to be Gunther versus Sami, straight up one-on-one. But does Sami need to win the belt, like I said? I don't think so. I think you get Sami Zayn coming close, and you're gonna keep Gunther really strong. Just doesn't feel like Sami is the guy, and that they have built this thing up. You needed almost like a Braun Breaker or someone like that, or Trick Williams, to come up this past year and be built up to be the one that they kind of peg as like, he's gonna beat Gunther eventually, and then eventually have their paths cross. And you could have done this, I think, with Chad Gable all year, but they didn't pull the trigger. And he came close on Raw, but circling back to it now, I don't think it's gonna work out. And I also don't see Sami beating Gunther, and that's okay. It'd be cool to see Gunther win again, back-to-back WrestleManias, undefeated, holding that Intercontinental title. But I'm more interested now of like, okay, Gunther has done this. I kind of want to see Gunther going for the World Heavyweight title, because that's going to be very interesting in the next year of where that lands. Whether it is Seth retaining, Drew picking it up, when Punk comes back, does he pick up the world title? But they needing more heels. And that's a whole other conversation about what's going on with the world title after WrestleMania. But if Chad doesn't get back into this IC title and it's just a done deal, and it's going to be Sami Gunther, and Chad's just back perpetually in the tag division, I think that was his shot and that was his moment. Sure, once in a while, they might branch Chad out because he can put on a banger match with anybody. But I think that you need to pull the trigger on that. This could, like I said at the beginning, this could be one of those situations where the fans rally. We got the big "We Want Cody" rally. We've seen the push for Chad Gable online. We could see this in the coming weeks. And it doesn't make Sami a heel. And Gunther is like, he's like a tweener. Like, people love Gunther. He's bad, but he smiles all the time. So he's having a good time. But you got two giant baby faces with Gunther. You got a lot of guys to do a lot of stuff, and you put on a 20-25 minute match. You got Chad doing German suplexes. And if you had that kind of crowning moment where you had Chad beat Gunther by submission and got him to actually tap out or pass out, could do that too, so Gunther doesn't lose the like clean way. Then you get the big triumphant moment, Chad Gable finally doing it. And that's where I feel the Gauntlet was almost a missed opportunity in some regard. Because again, if you flipped it around and you had Chad run the Gauntlet and you built up weeks really strong of both Sami and Chad, and making them the two faces of like 1-1 of like who's gonna do it, and them really competing against each other to who's gonna get in the Gauntlet and run the Gauntlet. And if you got Chad to start it off and go all the way to the end and then win it like Kofi Kingston, it would have probably been a even bigger moment. Because we have seen Sami get triumphant moments with the bloodline and going through all of that. And we've seen Sami's tremendous story arc in the last like 2 years. I think you needed someone like Chad to be built up a lot stronger, run the Gauntlet, win the Gauntlet, and then get to WrestleMania for the IC title. And leading to that, having a little bit of a breakdown with Alpha Academy, telling them not to come out, Chad getting more serious, wearing the suits like he's been doing, and kind of embodying what Kurt Angle was always about, like just a wrestling machine, and pushing that narrative and pushing himself forward to finally beat Gunther, or just coming up short at WrestleMania. But what do you guys think? Was it a mistake having Sami versus Gunther be the WrestleMania match for the IC title? Should Chad Gable be added in or have won the whole thing? And if you guys enjoy unfiltered videos like this, hit subscribe, hit that like button. I will see you on the next one. Bye.